Hi everyone, my name's Jessica and I work in the field of addiction and mental health, offering group and individual therapy. I wanted to take some time to share some research and my personal experiences in the field to shed some light on a common barrier that I see on a daily basis that continues to prevent and postpone the recovery process. My hope is to demonstrate some of the work that can go into individual counseling and how it's crucial to have a clear understanding of what addiction really is and not get caught up in the stigmatized perspective that's embedded into our culture. I'll get into that a little bit later on though. So let's first look at a common pattern I encounter when I first start working with a client. Right away, they can tell me about their negative behaviors, how horrible they are, what a disappointment they are, or how they're the black sheep in the family. They know their health is deteriorating, from infections and cardiac impairment, cirrhosis of the liver, you name it. They report that their loved ones are just heartbroken. Their employer is about to fire them. They're accumulating charge after charge and court date after court date. They're the expert in knowing that substance use is bad. I don't need to tell them. But there they find themselves repeating the same actions despite the negative consequences. By the time these individuals sit down with me in session, they're completely depleted. They have very low self-esteem, they're riddled with guilt and shame. The main messages that they communicate are, they're bad, and they struggle because they make poor choice after poor choice. So I offer this, yes, poor decision making is a byproduct of substance use, but it doesn't end there. The equation is not just person plus bad choices equals addiction. Unfortunately in society, however, this is the accepted answer. Although advocacy and education have created shifts in thinking, the stigma of addiction still widely exists. So what is stigma then, and why is it important to be aware of? By definition, stigma essentially means disapproval or discrimination towards a group of individuals, and generally it separates them from others. So if society is telling you that you're bad, you make poor choices, you're a burden to the system, you must be punished, well, you begin to adopt this way of thinking about yourself. And then to make matters worse, not only do you start to believe it, but those around you end up believing it as well. How discouraging it must be to hear this from all angles. How outcasted someone must really feel. When you start treating these messages as fact, then you certainly won't feel worthy of seeking treatment, and that's the constant problem that I encounter with individuals. For example, I had a client, and for the first couple months in treatment, he didn't want to be seen smiling or having a good time because he felt so guilty and so ashamed. Can you imagine feeling so worthless that you believe you don't deserve to smile? I spend so many hours trying to undo the damage caused by these messages. So please, do me a favor, give yourself a head start. Take notes, revisit these videos. Whatever you need to do to begin shifting your own thinking and your own language so that you come to realize that you're not defined by your struggles and that you deserve some self-compassion. I tell my clients all the time, if their suffering was merely a result of choice, then they could simply stop choosing to use and start choosing to stop. I tell them, if it was that easy, I would be out of a job yesterday. How wonderful it would be if there were no more wait lists for services because, poof, everyone just chose to stop. I hope you're starting to see my point that, again, it's really not that easy. The reality is that this explanation or idea of addiction is incorrect, as the need for treatment and support continues to skyrocket. See, I offer support to some of the most intelligent and resourceful individuals I have ever met. So trust me, we're not dealing with incompetent people recklessly choosing to self-destruct. So let me back up my passionate spiel with some research and real-life examples to support this claim. Some of you may already know Dr. Gabor Mate, but for those of you who don't, he is a leading researcher and advocate in the field of addiction. He worked many years as a physician and spent over a decade in Vancouver's downtown east side, supporting those who have substance use disorders and mental health challenges. His research findings suggest that addiction is not a moral failure. It's not a weakness of character, it's not an ethical lapse, a failure of willpower, or an inherited brain disease. He discovered that addiction is actually what happens in response to human suffering. It's an individual's attempt to avoid suffering caused by trauma, neglect, or other adverse childhood experiences. People use substances as a result of experiencing deep emotional pain, and they didn't have the resources to deal with the pain in a healthy manner. His famous statement is, when you're working with someone, you can't just ask why the addiction. We need to take it a step further and ask why the pain. So start to use this as a reflection question for yourself then, and perhaps it may begin to offer deeper insights. Never mind poor choices. Let's begin to look at the pain you have endured. What are you trying to escape? This perspective lines up with the work that I do with clients. When I get to hear their stories for the first time, I always end up saying to myself in my head, no wonder you turned to fentanyl to deal with the pain caused by sexual abuse. No wonder you use crystal meth to numb the pain of the bullying and the torment you experienced for being gay and the constant rejection you felt from your community and your parents. No wonder you use alcohol to ease the symptoms of your undiagnosed mental health concerns and to forget the sounds of your parents' deteriorating marriage. No wonder you use cocaine, to forget how much it hurts to never receive the love you needed from your mother, or to numb the grief from your grandmother passing away. No wonder you struggle with heroin and became street involved because you're trying to connect to some form of a family, because your own father has been in and out of incarceration, and your mother, well, she's struggling herself and abusing alcohol. The interesting thing here is, if we don't take the time to build trust together, to share and process these personal experiences, we could easily get caught up in all the distracting behavior. When someone's suffering, they usually exhibit, unhealthy states of mind. And so if we go back to that street-involved person, they could appear to be defensive and rude and show no interest in changing their ways. The one abusing alcohol, they could be repeatedly showing up late for work, lashing out verbally, lying to their parents, and so forth. The other one using cocaine, they could be in and out of the hospital overdosing and appear to have no regard for anyone. The other individual using crystal meth, let's say they're engaging in illegal activity to earn quick money to support their habit. See, at first glance, we could just label these individuals as problematic. Let's slap on the addict label and call it a day, right? And this is where society gets caught up, because that's what we do. They're judged, it's like taking a book and judging it by its cover. We're not understanding the story that's inside and what brought that individual to that point in the first place. Gabor says that this is the easy explanation to arrive at. Let's blame the addict. It rids society from the responsibility of solving the deeper issues. No one I talk to tells me, Jess, when I was younger, I had big dreams of being completely dependent on alcohol, or I aspired to hurt my family and others on a regular basis. They never wanted this. So what's happened then? Gabor breaks down some important concepts that I think are often overlooked, but really highlight how our environment can impact our substance use behavior. So let's break it down. Let's look at the basics of the development of the mammal's brain. We have a very large brain with complex circuitry. If we remained in the womb until our brain was fully developed to an adult size, calculate the circumference and figure it out for yourself, things would not go over very well. So then that means humans are born with underdeveloped brains, both in size and function. Just think, humans are born and we are cute, but rather useless little peanuts. Think of how dependent we are on our caregivers. We can't talk, walk, eat on our own, and so forth. It takes years for our brain to increase in size and capacity. Whereas if you think of a horse, who in comparison has a much smaller brain and more simplistic function, poof, they're born, and next thing you know, they're fending for themselves. The point is, an underdeveloped child's brain that comes into the world is largely susceptible to the environment that it's raised in. Gabor suggests thinking of a child's brain like you would a tiny little seed. In order for the seed to grow successfully, it requires certain conditions: soil, sunlight, and water. In comparison, Gabor indicated that a child's brain requires certain conditions to develop in a healthy manner as well. These conditions include the presence of an emotionally available, constantly available caregiver who is responsive to our needs. Social connection and attachment to other humans is vital to our survival. Let's face it, not everyone grows up under ideal circumstances. I'm sure as you're listening, you can begin to reflect on your own experiences and identify hardship. So experiences of trauma, neglect, lack of attachment, or any other disruptive event that occurs during a child's time of vulnerable brain development can have a significant impact. Another critical point to highlight is that our body produces chemicals called endorphins. They are our own naturally occurring opiates in the body. These chemicals are released when we're stressed or in any sort of pain, and their purpose is actually to ease the pain and the stress when it arises. So if we introduce heroin into our system, for example, it mimics our own naturally occurring painkillers and creates a surge of euphoric feelings. So here develops the dependence to escape. A person experiences physical or emotional pain, and then they realize that using heroin does a really good job at eliminating that pain, because by nature, that's what it's designed to do. Let me leave you with one final piece of research conducted by Canadian psychologist Bruce Alexander. He set out to challenge this idea that drugs by nature are addictive. So if you start using them, then voila, you become addicted. Again, creating this overly simplistic idea that because you choose to use substances, you are now physiologically dependent due to their addictive properties. But many people who use substances don't become addicted. So again, something is missing. Now, this perspective came about by an earlier study that included rats in a cage with 2 water bottles on each end. One had just plain water, and the other had water mixed with morphine. It was discovered that the rats would consume the morphine-laced water and not the regular water, leading to the conclusion that rats became addicted to the morphine. Dr. Alexander took this a step further though, because he noticed that these rats had empty cages with no other outlets but the bottles. So he created what's referred to as Rat Park. This included more space, stimulation, there's balls and tunnels, and there's other rats for socialization. It was discovered then that the rats who were in this what we refer to as an enriched environment were more inclined to just drink the regular plain water, and they weren't attracted to the morphine water. These findings support the notion that, as I said before, we are social beings that need love, connection, support, productive outlets, a sense of purpose. If we have an unhealthy, deprived environment, we're more likely to turn to external coping strategies to survive these conditions. So in summary, the recovery process is all about healing pain in a healthy manner, learning to regulate emotions by replacing substances with strategies. It involves looking at your version of Rat Park and figuring out how we can build a life for yourself that you can thrive in. One that includes love for oneself, for others, healthy attachments, and social connection. You want to create a sense of purpose in life. You want to take accountability and responsibility, integrate hobbies, and honor your own self-care. So if you take anything away from this video, I hope it's this: recognizing that trauma plus neglect plus unmet needs plus lack of social attachment plus genetic predisposition is actually what addiction is all about. I can see the faces of individuals who have sat in your shoes. They're contemplating reaching out, they're scared, they don't know what to do. They now call me with updates about their new condo, the fiance they proposed to, the PhD they just earned, the awesome girls' night they just had with mom. They send me pictures. They're holding their newborn children with tears in their eyes. They tell me about their hobbies, their inner peace, and how they can live life on life's terms. You may not have directly chosen to take this path in life, but you can make a choice to deal with pain in a healthier way and with support. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm just saying it's very possible, and it's worth every stitch of effort. I see it all the time. Don't own or internalize the unhealthy messages rooted in the stigma of addiction. It's simply uneducated in nature. Recognize that you were just doing the best you could with the resources that you had. Now you need to commit to your own research and self-discovery to find your own truth, because only you know what it is to walk in your shoes. The book cover that was once judged has a beautiful story inside that others need to hear. Don't ever shy away from reading the pages with pride. For all the good, the bad, and the ugly, that's what makes you the person you are today. And you can inspire so many others to find the beauty in their story as well. So hold your head high and start hiking towards the path that you desire. I hope this video has provided you with a shift in perspective and connect you with some useful resources. But more importantly, I hope for you that today you leave with a little piece of self-compassion. Thank you.